Want to give a huge welcome and a big shout out to one of the newest members of our 8-Bit Heroes family, What a Doll's Life. Big shouts out to you. So if you'd like to be shouted out on our next video, then you know what to do. Hit that like button, share the video out to some people, and do us the biggest honor of all and hit that subscribe button. That being said, on to the video. So Legend of Vox Machina episodes 7, 8, and 9. Woo! So this series has definitely picked up quite a bit in these last 3 episodes, especially because we're getting more to the point of everything that's going on and really the culmination of a lot of Percival's story. So episode 7 is entitled Scanbo, and this is a Scanlan centric episode, but it doesn't really it definitely furthers the story. It's not like a lot of series where when there's a character focused episode where it's kind of like filler. That's not how this goes down, but rather they are basically dealing with the fallout from episode 6, where at the end Percival points his gun at Vax, and obviously there's a specific problem with this. So what we're really given in this episode is the backstory behind Percival creating his gun, which was really cool. But we're still not quite... there's still a lot left on the table as far as what that entails, especially given the black smoke when he's killing a target that's on his list, or when he just goes into that pure vengeance mode that I really find really cool. And the fact that they're still keeping that mostly under wraps and a secret, I think is interesting. But back to Scanlan. So basically everybody is trying to figure out a plan as to how to distract Duke Vemire from being able to stop them from freeing Percival's sister. And so everybody's, brainstorming and everything, and then they finally figure out an idea, and it's Scanlan basically says, and this is verbatim, I'm not exaggerating or giving any type of hyperbole. He says he's gonna burn his motherfucking house down. And so basically you're following Scanlan through his plot to burn the Duke's motherfucking house down. And that's how this episode goes. I mean, it's really fun. You get to see, what makes Scanlan a worthy member of Vox Machina, besides the fact that, he obviously is a bard, but he is able to really distract and draw attention to himself and away from the rest of the team. So that was really cool. Now, what really made the episode, though, for me, besides just watching Scanlan be Scanlan, is that we really get to see him go one-on-one with a real enemy, and that being the Duke. The Duke, obviously, we've seen him in a couple other episodes, is no joke. He's not playing. And so to see Scanlan use his various skills of subterfuge and his bard magic in order to go toe-to-toe with this known killer was great episode for me. Now, aside from that, obviously, we have the rest of the team infiltrating the royal housing where they're keeping Cassandra, Percival's sister, hostage. So, that's happening. But like I said, the end fight between Scanlan and the Duke is really what made it. So next, let's move on to episode 8. Now, episode 8, also a good episode, is the Silver Tongue. And what made this episode really cool, besides the fact that there's just an all-out battle, all-out battle to free Cassandra Derolo, is really just seeing what Whitestone looked like as far as from Percival's perspective prior to it being taken by the Briarwoods. So you get to see him and his sister and their teacher in particular. And their teacher, Professor Anders, he's obviously an academic, he's an intellectual, and he had ambitions outside of just being the children's tutor, but you can see that the Derolo parents they're not really trying to foster his ambitions. They're not really trying to you know, to feed his creativity, and so it's stifled. And the parallel here is that was also stifled in Percival, because as we know, Percival had other siblings outside of him and his sister that were older, and he was not the direct heir to the throne, at first. So, even though he is a brilliant scientist and engineer, just like Professor Anders is, both of them have share the almost squandered potential in a way by the Derolo patriarch and matriarch of that particular family. So, we get to see how Professor Anders develops, and I thought that was a really good three-dimensional way to present this character, because even though he is an evil SOB, he's still a person, and he didn't just become evil. It was a process. And so we get to learn more about him. Now, the fight between Anders and Vox Machina is definitely awesome. So essentially, Anders can control these suits of armor, and they prove to be a challenge even for like members of the team like Grog, because they don't feel pain. But what's interesting is once these enemies are dispatched, then what you end up having is a situation in which Professor Anders actually takes control of various members of Vox Machina, and that is really what turns this into a really interesting episode, especially with Percival being the only one not being controlled. Also, we get to see Kiki do some really great healing magic. She's not obviously as good at the healing magics as other members of the team. She's just not. But Keyleth is definitely trying. She's trying. Pike is obviously the healer, but she's gone. She's still trying to work out, why she has no connection to Everlight, which is the side story in this episode. And it actually comes across as very compelling. I don't feel like it didn't take me out of the story, and I didn't feel like I was wasting my time with the ancillary story of Pike trying to get her magic back. So, that was, big shouts out to the writers of the series for making that feel important. So, Keyleth, she is able to help Cassandra because Professor Anders essentially kills her, or at least deals her a mortal wound by slitting her throat. So that was really cool. Now, the way that Percival takes out Anders, I think, was really, really awesome, because I really thought that he was going to shoot one of the members of Vox Machina, but he doesn't end up doing that. He actually, takes his time, thinks out the problem, and has a effective solution, shooting out Professor Anders' silver tongue that he uses in order to control the rest of the members of Vox Machina. Now, there's also something going on with the Briarwoods currently, and we find, I literally got to find out that Lady Briarwood is not in fact a vampire. Rather, her husband is the one that is a vampire. She is just a witch who has basically made a pact with another entity in order to make her husband a vampire. So that I thought was really interesting, and a lot more, we get a lot more about them. So episode 9 is basically the escape, and episode 9 is entitled The Tide of Bone. Now, this is a good episode, but it's also really, really sad because unfortunately we lose Archibald, who was the leader of the rebellion in Whitestone. And what this does is twofold. So this episode actually cements Percival's leadership of not only the rebellion of Whitestone, but his claim to the throne of Whitestone. And what's interesting about this, and what I really appreciated, because it really showed some restraint on Amazon's part, they didn't just immediately give the leadership to Cassandra, which I really thought was going to happen, but rather she is very adamant about the idea that not only is she not trustworthy in the eyes of the people, because she has been with the Briarwoods, even though she was a spy for the rebellion, she was still seen with the Briarwoods for years and years. Therefore, the people would not put their faith in her. But that she's also not the rightful heir, and thus Percival needs to step up. She tells him this multiple times in the episode so that he can really be the leader that he was always meant to be. And we get to see a little bit of insecurity on Percival's part, because his thing is, hey, I ran, I abandoned our people. And, it's definitely a more human story to be told. Also, we get Pike back, and that's awesome. Even though she is only astral projecting to help the team, she is definitely there, and her powers are now far greater than they were in previous episodes. Now, what makes this interesting, I love that they didn't Game of Thrones this, where she's just instantly, there without any regard for how long it takes between the temple that she's at and Whitestone. They actually cover this very, very well, and I appreciate that. So as far as these 3 episodes, these definitely get a 9 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed them thoroughly. So, we'll see you next week. I think the finale is next week if they continue with the 3 episode structure. So we'll see the ultimate showdown with the Briarwoods. But until then, guys, 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace.